Hey, how's it going, everybody? And welcome into another episode of Saturday Mock Drafts here on the SFS channel. My name's Gavin, and today I'm going to be hopping onto Sleeper Fantasy and drafting with some members of my free community Discord that you can take advantage of by joining through the link in the description of today and every video here on the channel. That's how you get access to joining up these mock drafts, being featured here on the channel, and having access to so much more fantasy advice, question and answer segments, and a lot more that you guys can completely steer whichever direction that you would like it to be. So go take advantage of that. Join the community Discord. I love to see 100 members in there before the start of the 2021 NFL season, and we're creeping towards halfway there, and with a big August ahead and fantasy season heating up here, there's no reason that we can't get that done. So without further ado, it's been a long week, and I don't want to waste too much of your time here on a Saturday, so let's hit that intro and get straight in to the mock draft. Here we go, everyone. So we've got a few spots open still in today's mock draft. Again, please join that community Discord and take advantage of the stuff we've got going on here. I'm doing free question and answers. You can ask me anything you'd like about fantasy, basically any time of day. I can't promise I'll get back to you immediately, but I'm always on that Discord server a few times a day. So I pop in and out of there and answer questions as I have them. So yeah, take advantage of that, you guys. Here we've got a 60-second timer, as last episode went a bit long, but I love doing these mock drafts. We can get into a lot of analysis with a bunch of different players here. I am drafting here out of the 1.4 overall position. We've been changing it up every time around here, so just trying to get a widespread variety of draft picks going here on the channel, talking about different names and making sure every episode is unique in its own way for you, so you're getting as much content and relevant information as possible here. So Nick Foles, QB1, time's up, gets auto-drafted despite the fact that he's on the app right now. That little green circle indicates that he was present, so maybe he wasn't quite expecting that 60-second timer, although I did give everyone a heads up that that was going to be happening. But it's all right. The right pick was made there. Christian McCaffrey went off the board. I think it's a toss-up. You can really go either way between CMC or Dalvin Cook. Personally, I think Dalvin Cook is the safer option to go with based off of him just having a better floor, staying clean last season, and he obviously, he missed, I think, 2 games it was. He missed a very early season game, then he missed week 17, but Christian McCaffrey only played 3 or 4 games last season, so you're talking about 2 backs who have had different things throughout their careers. CMC didn't have anything very significant last year, so it's not a huge reason to have significant worry in the long-term game here. But nonetheless, I do think that Cook's floor is safer, but then I'll turn around and tell you that CMC has a higher ceiling. So it's a give and take. Which one would you rather prefer to have for your fantasy teams this season? Jokester's winding down here. The clock is ticking out on him as well, but that's all right. He will probably go Kamara here, which is who I wanted to take. So that is going to make my life a lot more difficult. Saquon Barkley actually goes at the 1-3 here. So another thing that's interesting to break down and talk about here is the fact that, Saquon Barkley might not play the first couple games of the season. You saw there he was listed on the PUP if you were able to see the top players available on the board. I'll take Alvin Kamara and keep this thing rolling here because I've got a long time to talk before my next pick. This is a full PPR mock draft, so this went perfectly according to my draft strategy and my plan here. I want to go RB heavy in the first couple rounds here, and this is full PPR, and I'm not locking into taking running back every round, the first 3 rounds or anything, but I do want to make sure I have that position properly addressed and looking respectable as we get into the later stages of this draft, because when you have so many wide receivers available late in the draft that have really nice upside, I just put out a couple videos this week with some league-winning wide receiver options in the rounds 5+ territory. So again, looking at players that can give you some really great upside that you don't have to take in the first couple rounds here. Tyreek Hill went all the way up at the 1-6, but Devontae Adams, who I would actually argue is a better fantasy option right now, goes all the way down at the 112, 6 picks later, and Stephon Diggs right after him, who also could finish better than Tyreek Hill this season. So just kind of illustrating here right off the top of the board how deep the positional, the positional scarcity is not very great at the wide receiver position. There's a lot of options to choose from, and it makes sense when you've got an NFL team, you can only start one running back technically. I mean, you don't really see NFL teams running the wishbone out here with 2 running backs in the backfield. So you're starting 1 halfback and one true back behind the QB, and then you've got most likely at very minimum 2 wide receivers split out, maybe a third, and if you're in quads, you've got 4 wide receivers lined up. So a lot more opportunities for starters in the NFL at the wide receiver position than there are running backs, and we see that impact our fantasy lineups here. So alrighty, back to that pick though. Alvin Kamara, a PPR monster. His value comes from the receiving game, so getting a running back in a full PPR league that is giving us that type of upside at the running back position is absolutely something that can't go understated here. There is very few running backs that see the receiving volume that Alvin Kamara does. I would say that really Christian McCaffrey is the only player. Maybe Austin Eckler's in that territory, but he isn't even close to being on the same level as a rushing threat as those other two. So getting that really sets us up for success here. It's already our second pick here at the 2-9, so I've got another decision to make. I don't love the wide receiver options right now. I really would like to take a Keenan Allen or an Allen Robinson, this being a full PPR league. Those guys are target monsters. Here at the 3-4, but at this spot, I'm not so sure I'd like to do that just yet. A.J. Brown has been going a little bit too early for my liking. I do like the fact that Calvin Ridley was taken before him here, so good job there with that draft pick there for one of my Discord and subscriber members here. I believe, let's see here. I want to check out the running back group before I make my draft pick. And Travis Kelsey long gone off the board at the 1-8, so another thing I typically like to do here is invest into the tight end position early when Travis Kelsey is available. I'm not too keen on taking a George Kittle, though. So 4 seconds, I've got to make a choice. I'm going to end up going with my next best running back off the board here, and that's Naji Harris. I was checking out who else was there because my draft guide rankings do not properly reflect ADP, which means, I shouldn't say they don't properly reflect ADP. My rankings are essentially different than what the fantasy consensus here is on Sleeper Fantasy. I mean, that's the case with any fantasy analyst, anybody out there that makes a rankings list. If your ranking sheet goes exactly according to the way the draft board tells you to make the picks, there's something wrong there. I mean, nobody should have the exact average draft position fantasy rankings. That then your team would just be going by the books, and you're basically only providing auto draft insight. So obviously I've got my own ranking sheet. When this video is going up, I am finishing the final stretch of the 250 player profiles that I've been writing for the 2021 redraft collection. Those were an absolute bear to finish, and I have been spending hours upon hours on those. So please, if you would like to go take advantage of those, I'd greatly appreciate that. The Discord is a way that you can potentially get yourself access to giveaways by just being simply involved with that community, and I'll be putting out in August some weekly activities or some weekly interactive things, some discussion posts that if you just participate in those, you can get access to that draft guide for free. But I'll only be having a few winners of that. So if you want to go check that out, you can head over to sizzlefantasy.com and get yourself hooked up with that draft guide collection. But basically, the point that I was getting to here is I'll be finishing up the top 250 players on my draft board. I'm making profiles for them where I give them instant draft day ratings based off of their ceiling, their floor, and then I have a risk radar out of 10 as well. Those first 2 metrics are out of 10 as well, where I give them basically just a quick breakdown by rating them in those categories, and then I rate how risky or how safe they are at their current draft position. I've got to make a pick here, so I'll come back to my point in just a sec. I actually really like the idea of taking Darren Waller here. I'm actually Darren Waller over George Kittle. He has a larger percentage of the target share in his respective offense. The touchdown upside has been higher as of late. We haven't ever seen George Kittle score more than 5 touchdowns in a given season, so I'm not so sure that at this point he's a vet. He's not a young gun and just waiting to potentially see more usage in that area of the field. It just hasn't happened. So that kind of makes me think that Shanahan wants to keep the ball on the ground and just pound it into the end zone rather than putting the ball into Jimmy G's hands. And if Trey Lance comes in the game, I would not be shocked at all to see them use him as a QB power rushing threat. So I think George Kittle's best chance to score touchdowns comes outside of the 20-yard line on those run after catch plays. And I would stay clear of him before Darren Waller has gone off the board. That being my main point here. But nonetheless, so after I finish off those 250 player profiles, the following day, so Sunday, a day after you're seeing this video, or if you're watching this after the day it comes out, these will already be done for you. But I am completely revamping my entire rankings list here. I'll be updating those. It's been a minute since I've done that because it's been a very, very busy summer for me. But after that update, I will be doing them weekly moving forward. So I'll have updated, fresh rankings for you guys each and every single week. Those are based off of half PPR scoring. So they're going to be the most balanced of the two fantasy worlds out there. I mean, obviously there is the exact half PPR scoring, but if you're playing standard or if you're playing full PPR, they are still very relatable to you because they're only half a point away from you from whichever land of whatever range on the spectrum you fall onto here. The one thing or the two things that might make it a little bit more tricky or a little bit more inconsistent with your league format is if you're playing in a super flex league with two quarterbacks, or if you're playing in a tight end premium league with 2 points per reception for tight ends. I don't have that factored in there, but what I do have is positional rankings on top of that big board. So you're going to be able to see my rankings for each individual position, which you can then use to kind of translate back and forth what the overall ranking should be for your overall league as a whole. So the big board rankings are again going to pertain more to those more traditional style fantasy leagues, but there is still absolutely information and content for you if you have those other more, I guess you could almost call them advanced forms of fantasy, because at the end of the day, it makes them more interesting. Something I love to get into as I play a lot of these leagues is auction, fantasy advice, and draft guides for next season. I absolutely love playing auction style fantasy. I think it's something that's super fun to do. So I would love to hop that into my draft kits next year as well. But we need to talk about the draft board here. We've been rambling for a while, and the 60-second timer is really making things go quickly here. So I guess that's good and bad depending on which angle you're looking at it from here. But let's see here. So it'd probably be a smart time to invest into the wide receiver position, as I have not currently done that. I love that I was able to pick up Darren Waller because I think that I have two great running backs. I didn't really talk about the Naji Harris pick at all. Basically here, he's going to be used as a 3-down back in that Pittsburgh offense. The GM has already said he expected him to be used as that way, and he has the skill set for it. He's a very big player, has a very, very good goal line presence because of his size. But I think that the other thing that he doesn't really get enough credit for is his hands. And he's a very good pass catcher out of the backfield and can make defenders miss very, very well. So I've got a couple choices here. This is the late 4th round. I could take Lamar Jackson, who somehow got COVID again. That was a really weird thing to see come out the other day. Or I could take a Daryl Henderson and really load myself up at the running back position, despite the fact that this is full PPR. I think I might end up doing that because I'm not too overly high on a Robert Woods or a DJ Moore at this spot quite yet. So 3 really solid backs to start off the board here with an elite fantasy tight end. This is not how I expected things to go in today's video. I thought I'd have some better wide receiver options, and I did have Allen Robinson sitting for me there at the 3-5, but at the end of the day, I think I can just get the receivers I'd like better. Particularly, I've got, where is he here? Ceedee Lamb and Tyler Lockett, who were featured in my video a couple days back for some league winning, again, rounds 5+ players. So if one of those guys can fall into my lap, ooh, looking a little dicey here as Ceedee Lamb got sniped from me. My man Nick Foles, QB1's been watching the videos, knows what's up here. Jokester is the king of sniping the players I want off the board, so I'm going to be really disappointed if he snatches Lockett from me. I'm going to have to go really receiver light and probably pull the trigger on a Lamar Jackson. He did it. My man stole Tyler Lockett from me. Classic. I can't wait till he sees this because oh man, he knows. He even said before the video today, he goes, we're sitting right in the middle of Sniperville at the top of the draft board because that's where we have the cluster of all the real draft picks. Man, that one stings. All right, so I'm fading Adam Thielen this year. Kenny Galladay's got some significant risk with that Giants team. It's really, the risk is because of Danny Dimes, Daniel Jones. Good Lord. I'm so flustered that my man, both of my guys fell off the board there. I am not very happy about that. That's fine though. I mean, hey, if there's a position that you want to get sniped at, I guess at the end of the day, I'm happy with it being the wide receiver position. If I got sniped at my running backs like I did a couple of videos back, that stings a lot worse. And I really didn't like how my draft turned out after that one. So I remember I was the number 12 pick, and 10 of the first 11 draft picks were running backs. And I'm sitting there like, okay, what do I do now? All the value is gone. It's a ridiculous reach to go for any of these other players. So I ended up going Travis Kelsey and Stephon Diggs, I think, is how the draft board played out. I shouldn't really be spoiling this video because you can go out and watch it for yourself, but I guess there's 14 rounds after that take place. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to be just fine here. If David Montgomery and Chris Carson fall to me, I can pick them back to back, and I'll at least feel respectable about how my position is playing out here. The two picks before me, Chris Carson, David Montgomery, boom, boom, off the board. Like, I am purposefully not streaming these videos yet, these subscriber mock drafts, because I know I'll get sniped even harder because people will be able to hear my thought process as I go through these draft boards. And for the simple fact, I just want to wait till fantasy season ramps up a little bit and we can get a little bit more engagement with that. But man, I mean, I've gotten burned pretty bad here off air, so I can't imagine how bad it would be if I actually had everyone in my head while I'm making my draft picks. So, hey, again, I can't complain too much because the one fantasy position that I would like to be sniped at, I shouldn't say like because I'd never like to be sniped based off of the players I have on my board that I like. But if it was going to be any position, even in a full PPR league, take my wide receivers away from me. There's plenty of names down here we can use to fix this up. Robbie Anderson, Brandon Cooks, I'm looking at you guys down there on the board. I've even got them start up because they were featured in a video or multiple videos over the last month or so. So I just want to make it easier for me to find them here. There's no chance Devontae Smith falls to me, but if he did, I would absolutely throw a party because in a full PPR league, the target volume he's going to see in Philadelphia is going to be great for a year one receiver, and he's already got somewhat of a connection from college with this quarterback. So, hey, while we're on the topic of the Eagles, Deshaun Watson they are reportedly keeping an eye on the situation. So I would love to see D-Watt in Philly. Deshaun Watson, I talked about this a couple videos back, and there goes Devontae Smith there. Was one of my favorite QBs before all the allegations and stuff, obviously. I hope all of that's not true and he can stay out of trouble, but man, he's a fun player to watch. He's got some really underrated rushing ability as well. Him and DeAndre Hopkins, I had the stack of the two one year, and they won me my league. I had some other really strong pieces on that team too, but they were a big part of things. If he could come over here, I just picked up Devontae Smith in my Dynasty League. Somehow the fantasy gods blessed me, and I picked Jamar Chase at the 1-2, and then I was able to, in another pick I had acquired through trades, I had Devontae Smith fall to me, and man, I would love to have the stack of Devontae Smith and Deshaun Watson, but it's nothing close to a done deal here, as the Texans want a ridiculously large haul for him. So, all right, it has to be time. There's no situation here where I see myself taking anything but a wide receiver. And oddly enough, the name that pops off the board the most to me here is Mike Davis. But we don't need a fourth running back, especially one. He can be used as a receiving threat, but especially one that does not have a very high ceiling. So he's basically going to be a bowling ball barrel-like player. To me, Mike Davis is a little bit better version of C.J. Anderson. If you've been watching the NFL you would have seen C.J. Anderson in the Super Bowl 3 years ago. All right, basically I just got to pick my favorite receiver on the board here. And at the moment, my favorite receiver is Courtland Sutton, but I'm actually going to go with Chase Claypool here for the sole fact that I want my first wideout off the board to be a little bit less risky. Sutton's just coming off a big injury. He hasn't quite been cleared 100% of the way or acknowledged that he himself is 100%. He just talked about it a couple days back. He's getting close. He's almost ready, but they're being conservative and cautious with him. That's what you like to hear, though. You don't want players being rushed back from significant knee injuries. he might get off to a slow start, and unfortunately, Drew Lock is this quarterback, and best case scenario, I think that from a conservative side, it's Teddy Bridgewater, but neither of those are the fantasy QBs you want. And to be fair, neither has Ben Roethlisberger at this point, as his arm was like a noodle at the end of last season. But Chase Claypool finished as the top Pittsburgh wide receiver of that trio that they have there. Deontay Johnson and Juju Smith-Schuster were right behind him, but I think that Chase Claypool, I don't say this very often about fantasy players because I think it's a really risky thing. It's risky business to project touchdown production year over year. But if you're going to do it about a player, do it about a player like Chase Claypool, who has the frame and athletic profile to be able to find that as a consistent avenue in his upside and his fantasy situation. Chase Claypool has the wingspan, he has the height, he has the athleticism to score in the red zone, box players out, win contested grabs, and he's got explosive ability and run after catch potential. We saw it in his first highlight basically in the National Football League. It was like a 75-plus yard touchdown against the Broncos, I think. He's got wheels, so he can do it in open space too. I just think it's a nice situation that we can look at, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if once again he was the top scoring fantasy weapon in that offense. And I think currently, as of the last video I recorded, he was going as the last. And yep, he won as, I took him as the second Pittsburgh receiver off the board, but his ADP places him, and I actually saw this when I picked him. Juju Smith is being taken ahead of him. So Chase Claypool is being slept on a lot this year. I think he can produce close to, if not more than 10 touchdowns on a per year basis if he's healthy and getting good enough quarterback play. So I really like that there. We're going to go Sutton here then. As a wide receiver 1 and 2, it's a really high upside combo. I'd say the floor isn't the greatest considering the circumstances here, but when you look at the rest of my starting lineup, that is elite at literally every other position. Having Daryl Henderson as your RB3 is perfect. I think he's a strong candidate to be a quality running back 2, let alone having him as that next option. So with Naji Harris and Alvin Kamara in PPR leagues, the passing potential and the receiving threats that they pose, those are two very, very good players to build around. Darren Waller kind of offsets the weakness at the wide receiver position, in my opinion, because of how much of an advantage he gives us at the tight end spot. So, dang, Robbie Anderson, I was really hoping for that volume to fall to me there. We've got some good draft picks going off the boards here. In particular, this is like the all SFS team right here. I've fallen down a little bit lately on Nick Chubb, but Calvin Ridley, Chris Carson, David Montgomery, Dak Prescott, maybe not so much Jalen Waddle, but I don't hate that pick. And then Robbie Anderson, those are all players that I've been talking up here on the channel as of late. So we've got some good drafters going on right now. And then, by the way, at the end of today's video, I will take a look. I got a request by actually Willie Wallace right here. He wanted me to take a little bit of a deeper look, spend some more time on breaking down the user picks in the draft. So I think that that's certainly fair to do so, and I appreciate you guys coming in here and jumping in the drafts and giving me some good quality content here. So I will absolutely do that in today's video. I'll spend about a minute or two on each player, each user in the draft, and just kind of break down your team, look at some strengths and some weaknesses, and let you guys know what I think about your rosters. So, yeah, so it would be nice to capitalize on another receiver. I don't know if Brandon Cooks will still be there for me. Obviously, some new news in that situation in Houston. My man, Randall Cobb, in the backdrop. I do this every time. Other side. Randall Cobb's a Packer again. I'm a Packer fan. I'm heading to training camp on Monday, so I'll be posting Mock Draft Monday. By the way, again, another reason to join that Discord. Sunday night, we'll be recording that Mock Draft Monday episode, and that'll be posted, but I'll actually be at Packers training camp watching Randall Cobb, who is one of my favorite all-time players just in the National Football League, watching him. I'm not the largest player in the world. I used to play wide receiver, so seeing a slot player like Cobb was very cool for me. So to see him back with the team is awesome here. I don't think he'll be a Pro Bowl player ever again, and I would say that his best year was 2014 when he was, I think he was 9 touchdowns, 1,200 yards, 91 catches. He'll never do that again, and simply he just can't stay healthy enough to do that. He's only played, I think it was 10 games last season, and with Dallas, he missed a handful as well, his last season in Green Bay. I mean, he'll give you some really nice quality starts, and in a PPR league, you can maybe have him as a flex 1 or 2 option. But with Green Bay, they've already got another slot receiver, and he's going to mentor Amari Rodgers. The two of them are actually buddies. I can't believe we're actually talking a Randall Cobb fantasy analysis right now because I didn't expect him to be relevant whatsoever, but you kind of got to when Aaron Rodgers is your quarterback. Nonetheless, I think that he'll give us some games this year, but I don't think at the end of the day he'll be something too much to write home about because I think that the floor still really isn't there despite the fact that his ceiling has jumped tremendously. So, holy cow, I've got 20 seconds. I'm almost hurting myself here by limiting this clock here. I see Brandon Cooks' ADP seems to be rising. I am not going to take credit for that, although I have been singing his praises this offseason. That's good stuff, though. We like to see it. I think that he certainly deserves to be being drafted higher than he has been lately. Yeah, we got to go Brandon Cooks here. Ooh, did I make it? I did. Okay. Brandon Cooks, I think, is a great dimension to add to this roster. This one in particular, because I've got 2 very high upside wide receivers at the number 1 and 2 spot. Courtland Sutton and Chase Claypool have both flashed the potential to be wide receiver 1s in fantasy. They don't have the safest floors, though. That's why they're not being picked as wide receiver 1s. This kind of goes back, and I've just been nailing this point home the whole season, or this is the offseason, I suppose. This is the summer leading up to the season. There are so many players, legitimately, that can finish as top 12 receivers. There is only a handful of names that I would say are quality contenders to be running back 1s that are not being drafted as a top 12 running back right now. Chase Claypool and Courtland Sutton, based off of their touchdown ceiling and their frames that they have down in the red zone alone, can be those types of players for us. Sutton has done it before. The season prior to his knee injury, he was phenomenal, and he headed into 2020 healthy, but he just got hurt right away, so we never really got to see what he could do in year 2 with Drew Lock, a full season with him. I hope everything can go the best right now, but if it doesn't, Brandon Cooks is a very good option to lean back on. He's had numerous 1,000-yard seasons and still really isn't that old despite how long he's been playing. I'll pull him up here. I think he's like 27. Boom, 27 out of Oregon State. I mean, the dude's been with the Saints, the Rams, the Pats. He's gotten whacked around at a few Super Bowls. If you haven't seen those plays, he got absolutely killed by Malcolm Jenkins against the Eagles. Regardless, though, he saw 119 targets with Deshawn Watson as the number 2 option in that offense last year. No more Will Fuller there to take targets away from him. No more Randall Cobb for 10 games as he's a Packer now. They did bring in Anthony Miller, though, who I will say is a more significant threat probably at this stage than Cobb, but they're probably both only good for 10 games a year because they both have hamstring issues. So, let's see here. All right, I could take another high upside receiver. I do like the prospect of going that route. The running back position is a little bare. I do like the idea of a Tony Pollard maybe in a round or so here. Man, I might need to pause the draft board. This thing is flying by. I could just invest back into the wide receiver position. There's so many names I still like here. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm going to do here. I'm going to take another one of my names off my sleeper list from, what was that, Thursday's video. So yesterday, literally yesterday's, or no, that was Friday's video. Friday's video was 5 league-winning fantasy sleepers. And Corey Davis made that list. And if you missed that video, you should check it out. But obviously, I'm going to be right here to tell you about him right now. So Corey Davis simply has, in my opinion, the best shot to be the number 1, the X wide receiver for that Jets offense. Denzel Mims, I thought, could be potentially a threat, but report, based off Sleeper Fantasy, they send out great updates and alerts. So another reason I highly encourage you, and I'm not sponsored or partnered with Sleeper Fantasy whatsoever. I just truly, genuinely believe in this product, and I like the services that it provides to me. They gave, like, literally when Adam Schefter tweets out some big fantasy news, 2 seconds later, it's on Sleeper, and I get a notification from them as well. And sometimes they have really good information that Schefter, Rappaport, those guys aren't tweeting. I don't know if they have some like robot system going on or if they just have dudes watching Twitter 24/7 because they've got all the training camp alerts, updates, news, everything you need to know. I knew instantly, boom, Carson Wentz is hurt. That was big. These dudes were on it the second that the Packers were out looking for Randall Cobb on the trade market. They had a ton of stuff, literally all the teams. You're not missing anything when you're on Sleeper just because they've got all the updates for you. back to the point here, what I was saying. Sleeper told me at, 6 o'clock in the morning, a great, lovely report out of Jets camp. Denzel Mims is literally taking 100% of his reps with the second team. So he's not getting any first team looks. I'm going to guess that if he's not getting first team looks, I haven't looked into it too deeply. My starting lineup prediction for the team was Davis at the 1, Mims at the 2, and then in the slot, it would be kind of a mixed tandem of Crowder and Elijah Moore. I'm going to say right now, it's probably Moore and Crowder. One of them's playing outside with Davis on the other side of the field because I don't think Keelan Cole will slip into that starting lineup. But nonetheless, we got to make a pick here. So I would actually, so I'm really loving the sleepers that I'm getting here late at the wide receiver position. I like Deshawn Watson at this value right now, but since we got Lamar at the top of the board, I know he has COVID, but that's not going to affect him come regular season. He's got a month to recover, so he's actually got 5 weeks to recover at the time of this video. So we're going Darnell Mooney here. I would love to take Elijah Moore as another really sneaky high upside wide receiver threat, but I don't want to pick two players back to back from the same team. I will go Darnell Mooney here, and I'll talk about that pick in just a second, as that's been one of my most popular picks here lately on the channel, and he was another feature in that Sleepers episode from yesterday. But Corey Davis, I think he was so efficient in that Titans offense in 2020 for one of the least passing teams in the league, which makes it all the more impressive because anybody can command 25% of their target share when they play for the Ravens or the Browns. I am a huge Mark Andrews fan, love the guy to death. He's on my dynasty team, been a huge producer for me since I obviously started that league up. But when Mark Andrews has 25% of the Ravens' target share on 89 targets, that is not nearly as valuable as Amari Cooper having, I think it was 21% of the Cowboys' target share, 21, so 4% less on 130 targets. You get what I'm saying here? The differential between that is 41, and Mark Andrews had 4% higher of a target share for his team. We got to put a little bit of context behind that, and that's something I've had to catch myself on here because I love using target share numbers when talking about pass catchers here on the channel, but at the same time, not all target shares are created equally because some teams throw the ball a lot more than others. So I'll do my best for you guys to continue to break that down in a transparent manner so that you guys know what that means when I give you those stats and it's not wishy-washy, because I could bend those numbers very easily to make them seem like they're something they're not. So Mooney here, the pick. I'm going to have to wait a little bit longer here because I'm going to have to figure out who I want to take at this spot. It might be Tony Pollard time if you ask me. I've got 3 really solid backs I feel strongly about rolling out and starting at any given week. I could take Deshaun Watson here. I don't feel too pressed to do so, though, because I've already got an elite quarterback. Deshaun Watson would be great trade bait if I could end up flipping him. The question is, would I rather have Tony Pollard or would I rather have Deshaun Watson? I think the answer is going to be I'd rather have Tony Pollard because there's a lot more quarterbacks I like as opposed to running backs that I think can be quality here. I'm just going to check to make sure that we don't have any sleepers, any guys that could be starters for our teams. No. Okay. So why Tony Pollard here over Gus Edwards, over Nyheim Hines? Well, Gus Edwards, don't get me wrong, absolutely has standalone value in fantasy. He is a very big body, and on the goal line, it's hard to bring him down. He's definitely not the most, electric runner. He's kind of slow, to be honest. He's got one of the slowest 40s. I think he ran like a 4.7. But this is a full PPR league, and I think that while J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards aren't really receiving threats, or that's not what they center their game around, that's probably a better way to say it, they are still relevant players for all forms of fantasy scoring. But in a full PPR league, give me the more electric, the more dynamic player. That's Tony Pollard here. But that's not enough because the touchdown upside alone, and this is something I've talked about recently on the channel, made Gus Edwards a higher pick, and he's actually rated higher on my draft board right now in my SFS rankings. Those, again, will be updated here by the end of the day on Sunday. What is that? August 1st. So keep your eyes open for that. Nonetheless, Mike McCarthy today said that they actually want to get Tony Pollard more involved with that offense because he said, and I agree with him here, there's no reason that Zeke needs to touch the ball 25 or 30 times in a game. Get him 22, 23 carries. Even just 20 is fine. You're just going to bang him up. And his workload has been very, very heavy since coming into the league. Try and help out his efficiency. At this point, that is something that he could greatly improve upon. He had some of his worst efficiency and worst yardage and total production outputs of his career last season. So I think that that's all for the best. And when you're paying a running back that much money, you don't want to make him completely washed up and use up all the production he has for you. So utilize Tony Pollard. He is explosive. He has fresh legs. He's young. He's very talented. So if you can get in there and have him be a change of pace back as an elite handcuff option as well, because if something were to happen to Zeke, Pollard would still be a very, very relevant player to touch the ball. I think that there's all the reason to go out here and invest into Pollard as one of the top handcuff options now for this season, especially after hearing his head coach say those things about him. So another name I've got my eyes peeled for here is Latavius Murray. I want to make sure, and we don't have any computers picking here. Nobody's on auto draft, so I don't have to worry about getting sniped by the auto pick there. Okay. And the reason I want Murray is because at this point, picking a running back this highly in Alvin Kamara is going to be very important that I have some insurance on him. I could go Kirk Cousins. I could go Trey Lance here. I'm going to go Kirk Cousins. Here's my explanation for doing so. Kirk Cousins actually finished, and in my draft guide, this is another big portion, of the 2021 redraft kit. The consistency ratings and the consistency kings element is kind of the thing that we have unique to us here at the SFS channel. That is where, after the fantasy season is over, I have benchmarks, I have standards that players need to meet on a certain basis every game to either meet or miss their floor and either meet or miss their fantasy ceiling. I've got numbers set for every position group for half PPR scoring, and Kirk Cousins was somehow able to meet his floor and his ceiling enough times to be a consistency king. The quarterback position, I will note, had the most players that were consistency kings because it's one of the easiest positions to produce quality numbers at. But in total, I think there was under 20 total consistency kings across all positions in 2020. So the fact that Kirk Cousins cracked that list makes me feel very good about him heading into this year. How does he do that? Well, the Vikings have 2 elite receiving options, and they've got a very, very good run game to lean on that allows play-action balls to be incredibly effective in this offense. Another reason, the Vikings and Kirk Cousins are excellent at garbage time yards. It sounds biased coming from a Packer fan. I keep all that out of this here. I'll find any quarterback. Give me the guy that's throwing. Matt Ryan, perfect example. The Falcons trail late in the fourth quarter. Matty Ice is picking up another 150 yards, 2 touchdowns. Like, it just happens. It's something that we deal with in fantasy, and it's so annoying to see that happen when you're playing against a Kirk Cousins or a Matt Ryan, but these dudes just find a way to score fantasy points. They might not be relevant to their own teams, and it might not help them pick up W's, but they're still scoring points, and that's all we care about here. So it looks like I am going to get my hands, and it looks like the defenses want to go off the board here. That's interesting. We'll see if the players actually start picking them or if this just kind of turns into a battle of the computer taking them and us getting the scraps. That's interesting. We'll see what happens here. I'm going to go Murray, though, at this point and just not risk it. Let me just make sure. Yeah, the actual skill position players aren't all that fantastic. So we'll go Latavius Murray here and have no regrets because we have a very quality second. Really, this is a second handcuff running back pick. But the reasoning for doing so is that Alvin Kamara is going to be leaned on a lot this year. He's probably going to see more volume than he's ever seen in his career because there's no more Drew Brees, and they need those running backs to step up more. And Murray's going to see more usage in his own right, just straight up out of having to run the ball more to produce offensive numbers. But back to that quarterback situation, Kirk Cousins is a very productive and relevant fantasy QB. He was QB 11 last season, had a great floor, has a very quality ceiling, and although he just barely meets it a lot of the time, he is still meeting it. And I think in one of the last weeks of the year, he had like 35 fantasy points. He had like 4 or 5 touchdowns, 300 yards. It was a ridiculous game. I forget who they were playing to. It might have been like the Lions or something. But anyways, the reason I did not pick Trey Lance, and that's kind of the thing I wanted to get to here. A nice pick by the computer there, Paris Campbell, a player I should talk about in another episode. But or if I have time before my picks, but based off of just knowing myself and how we often get into a troublesome situation with the draft clock a lot of times, that's probably not going to happen. Trey Lance is basically, I don't want to say he's being slammed by Kyle Shanahan because I totally understand what he's doing here. He does not want his quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo, having any doubts that he is the guy for this season. We very well may not see Trey Lance at all in 2021, and I think that Kyle Shanahan would be completely fine doing that if the 49ers are winning games. They want to have a stable organization, and they don't want a bunch of rumors, a bunch of chatter, and a bunch of stuff distracting this team, because at the end of the day, they are Super Bowl contenders as the roster is currently constructed with Jimmy at the helm. So there's no reason to make him feel extra pressure, to make him feel like he is in a situation where he could lose his job any week. He is adamant. This team does not have an open battle at the quarterback position. There is not open competition for that starting job. Trey Lance is not in the running right now for making an appearance at any time this season. He probably will, but we don't know when that's going to be. Jimmy Garoppolo is going to have to mess things up so bad that his coach wants to reevaluate that spot. And if he just plays like he did in 2019 when they made the Super Bowl, what did they go? 14-2? Trey Lance ain't getting a shot at that starting job. So, yeah, the sky's the limit for Trey Lance, and he's going to score some huge points, I think, when he's in the lineup, but we don't actually know when that's going to be. So that is a big risk factor for us. I don't like picking defense this early, and I'm actually not going to because I just peeked, and I see the Dolphins down here, who I think will be available to me unless I get sniped. So we're going to take another skill position. Fitzmagic, love the upside there. I actually have a bit of time here. I've got 20 seconds. I'll make my pick, and then I might circle back to that Paris Campbell selection. This is an interesting one, too. Devontae Booker, since Saquon Barkley might not start. We've already got 2 handcuffed backs, though, so I don't want to over-dip into picking running backs that's value is solely based off of the starter being injured. So we'll go Terrace Marshall here. He's been having a really strong training camp and is a candidate to start for that team out of the slot right away this year. So, Paris Campbell, before we move too far, I said in Friday's video that T.Y. Hilton is a fantasy sleeper for this season. Paris Campbell is a much deeper fantasy sleeper, and we do have news out of Colts camp. Carson Wentz has a foot injury. It might have surgery. It might not. He's probably going to miss some time. That's the thing that makes me feel that there's value in that fantasy situation, and I don't think that if Wentz is on the field, or isn't on the field, I say this about either player, but it's very possible T.Y. Hilton is just past his prime. He won't be able to stay healthy. I get that there's concern, and there is question marks around him on the table here. If he's not going to do it, somebody has to step up for this Colts team, and I'm sorry. I watched Michael Pittman for a whole season last year, and I watched him at USC. He's a really nice all-around player. But I don't see anything that sticks off the charts to me and makes me feel that guy. He is going to be the receiver one. Unquestionably, he's going to have a breakout year this season. I think you look at Paris Campbell and you say, well, he could be the next T.Y. Hilton. He's got burners. He can stretch the field. He's not the most refined route runner, but neither is T.Y. Hilton. He's a very good veteran, savvy wideout, and he is very good at what he does. But Paris Campbell could be the next T.Y. in this offense, and if the wheels start kind of falling off the wagon here, maybe Paris Campbell steps up. He was a big-time talked about sleeper candidate last season, and he's kind of been pushed to the back burner since Pittman was drafted. So I think that we shouldn't be too quick to dismiss Paris Campbell and the upside he has for us this fantasy season. John Brown, another sleeper I like that goes off the board there. Obviously, the Raiders have some receiver competition. Who's going to be the guy for that team? What other picks are going off the board that I like to see here? Adam Troutman going at the 12-2. A great sleeper, high upside tight end for the Saints. Sean Payton loves his tight ends. And the Saints don't have many guys to throw the ball to when Michael Thomas is injured here. So that's another thing to talk about. Again, I will be breaking down the user drafted teams here before the end of today's episode. Thank you all for sticking with me if you're still here to this point, it might be time to take a defense here. Would love to take the Dolphins off the board. Give me some of that Brian Flores disguise defense. The more complicated it gets for the opposing quarterbacks, especially those youngins, the better. Actually, though, well, this isn't going to change my draft choice here, but Xavier Howard is not happy with the Dolphins front office. He would like to get moved out of town. So, let's see who goes off the board here. Don't snipe me, jokester. You already got me bad with that Tyler Lockett pick earlier. That one really stung. That changed the whole structure of this draft today. And Emmanuel Sanders goes off the board. So, yeah, I'm not a big fan of drafting defense early, but the Dolphins, in my opinion, outside of the Colts, I think you can group them in the same category. They are by far the best team available. I want some sacks and I want some turnovers. I can't guarantee myself that the rest of these teams will give that to me. So, fade the defense, I get it, but there's already been the premier teams taken off the board here, so I want to make sure I at least get something salvageable. Washington is my defense 1 this year, if you care. Right behind them is Tampa Bay, but I don't know. It's such a close grouping for me here because what I look for in a fantasy defense is I want to know, can you rush the passer? That is literally almost all I care about. If you can rush the passer, you are automatically probably a lock to make my top 12 defenses list. The Cardinals are in there. And if they trade Chandler Jones, that changes. But when you have, I think they were dang near the top, if not the top of the NFL in pressures and sacks last season, and you add J.J. Watt to that mix, Chandler Jones coming back off injury, that's a solid crew. And you just make things better when you also have a very quality secondary to back it up. And that's what the Rams have, and that's why they are also in my top 3. You talk about having Jalen Ramsey, Darius Williams is very underrated. They did lose some safeties. Johnny Johnson's out of town now. That might become an issue. They have one more. Oh, and they lost their slot corner to the Browns too. I forget his name, though. He was very, very good last season. Nonetheless, when you've got defenders that can rush the passer and then back it up on the back end in the secondary, that's what I'm looking for. Give me pressures, and if you've got good coverage, you'll get picks. So that's the Rams. That's the Washington football team. They've got some very under-the-radar corners there in Washington that are not household names, but are very, very quality man coverage guys. William Jackson coming over from Cincinnati is one of those players. Pittsburgh, I don't love their back end so much, but man, you talk about they have TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, and then they bring in Melvin Ingram off the streets. If you guys don't follow defense, I'm probably just saying names that don't mean anything to you, but these are very big-time pass rushers that can make a big difference for a team. Tampa's got a really young secondary, but they are hungry. They bat balls. They get balls tipped up in the air, picks. Antoine Winfield's awesome. I love Carlton Davis. I'm not a Bucks fan. They smoked my Packers they kind of mopped the floor with us for a full half of football in the NFC Championship game, and then we somehow managed to try and crawl back at the end, but didn't work out for us in the end either way, and we got swept by them last season. What other defenses are on the board here? But yeah, the Dolphins, they don't really have a great pass rusher, but their schemes get them a great pass rush. The 49ers don't have an elite secondary, but man, that front seven is good. You get what I'm saying here. So find a pass rush, start with sacks, and go from there. If you can find a good secondary, that's going to turn into those interceptions and just make it all the much harder for them to score points on you. Some defenses, I love this type of scoring. They start with 0 points, and you just get points for sacks, picks, fumble recoveries, and that stuff. Other defenses will start you off with 10 and bring you down the more points allowed they have. In that situation, in those circumstances, you probably want to go with the Washington football team and the Rams first, and then let the Steelers and the Bucks follow, but a totally different conversation for another time here, as we've got to make a pick, and I'm probably going to get auto-drafted here. Yikes, as I'm running fresh out of time. Oh, man, I don't even know who I want off this board. All right, well, okay, I got auto-picked. Who did they give me? Who I was going to pick? I was going to pick Evan Ingram, and they gave him to me. That's fine by me. Give me the upside tight end whose draft value has plummeted here recently. You know what? The pressure's off Ingram now. I wrote about this in his draft profile. I think that being the number 1 was too much for him to handle, but you bring in Kenny G and you bring back Saquon, he is at best the 3 or 4 option in this offense. Kadarius Toney might outrank him this season, even as a gadget player, if that's how they use him. So I've already got Darren Waller for this team. He's an elite player at his fantasy position. We'll be just fine if we're starting Darren Waller and stream Evan Engram for 1 week. So I don't love to invest too high of draft capital into more than one tight end, but being that we picked our first in the 3rd round and waited all the way till the end of the 16th for that second one, fine by me here. So let's recap our team first. Let me know down in the comment section below which team you think had the best draft in today's mock draft episode. Let me know why, of course, and then, yeah, if you were participating in today's mock draft, comment down there which team you were so that everyone else can see that as well. But starting things off here with Lamar Jackson at the quarterback position, he is in the tier 1 for me this season, top 5 player at worst. Alvin Kamara and Naji Harris manning up the top 2 running back spots. These are 2 RB1 type players. They've got the receiving volume potential there. Alvin Kamara's already got it. We know that. And Harris has the talent and the opportunity to do so. Our first 2 receivers aren't the best, but they are high upside players who I did state in this video, I believe have upside to finish as top 12 players at their position. Their floors are not the best, but they have frames to score touchdowns in the red zone, and they have athletic ability as well that'll help them do the rest when they're not producing in that area of the field. Darren Waller, a top 2 fantasy tight end in my book. He is number 2 right now. I don't think anyone's infringing upon Travis Kelsey's throne, but still, you talk about a guy who had, I think it was 28% of the Raiders' target share last year, and they lost their best pass catcher outside of Waller. He could be due for an increase in work this year. So another player who's very active in the red zone. He can line up as a wideout, literally split out as the X receiver in this offense, or at the end of the line of scrimmage as a tight end. So he's a very dynamic, versatile piece to use here. My top 2 flex options, Daryl Henderson for the Rams, obviously filling in for Cam Akers. I see him as a quality RB2 for the rest of the season. Brandon Cooks has really nice high upside wide receiver 2 potential. Give me those sacks with that Dolphins defense. And then the bench here, Corey Davis and Darnell Mooney are high upside sleeper wide receivers. Low draft capital investment for these dudes, but I think they have some really, really great weeks here and there this fantasy season. Tony Pollard and Latavius Murray as my bench running backs. I think Tony will be sprinkled into that Dallas offense this year, and Latavius will get his work. He has plays cut out for him in that Saints offense already, and you talk about them having to increase that volume with no more Breeze in the passing game there. Kirk Cousins, a really safe QB2 option, and then Terrace Marshall and Evan Engram to basically tail out the draft here with some more high upside players that don't have the safest floor but could hit big. All right, let's take a look at some user teams here. We'll just go straight down the list here. So if you are looking, if you obviously were in this mock draft, just scroll along here and you'll figure out where I'm at with your team. But here, I'll highlight your team so you can tell which one I'm zoomed on here. All right. Nick Foles, QB1. I love the top 3 round strategy here to heavy running back. Look, I think that for a full PPR league, this is attacked perfectly for the running backs that were taken. McCaffrey, great pick there. Obviously, it's the first pick, so you don't really have too much going against you. But then Dobbins and Gibson. Gibson's going to be highly involved in that receiving game, and Dobbins has incredibly explosive ability. I'm not so much of a big fan with DJ Moore at that 412. Something just rubs me wrong about him. I think that Robbie having a pre-existing connection with Sam Darnold is kind of turning me off to the idea of a DJ Moore this fantasy season. But Ceedee Lamb, give me some of that. I think that he could be your wide receiver 1. You picked him back-to-back. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day who does what as long as someone produces that level of production for you. But if Dak's there and healthy, Ceedee's got top 12 upside as well. Among the laundry list of names of players who I think have that at the wide receiver spot. And then give me your RB4. I mean, Mike Davis. Wow. That is a very deep running back group. And then Zach Moss, who I included in a sleeper episode 2-3 weeks ago now. But still, he's got some heavy upside. The floor is kind of shaky, but yeah, I'm liking how this team rounded out here. I think the receiver position has relevant and proper upside for what's been taken here. And Juju's a safer floor pick. You know, I think that the floor of the overall team could be a little bit better at the wide receiver spot, but who am I to talk? Look at the group I put together here. So that running back group is really going to be the core of this team. Another thing I will say that I'm seeing here, I'm not a big fan of Baker Mayfield as the lone quarterback taken for this roster. I mean, the 13th round is a long time to wait, so you're really looking at kind of picking from the scraps here. I would have liked to see maybe, I guess, Irv Smith was their only tight end off the board. I'm just trying to figure out a better way to have attacked that QB spot. The thing that, it's not that I don't like Baker Mayfield as a talent, but it's that Browns offense that I think rubs me a bit the wrong way, just because they run the ball nearly 60% of the time. So you're looking at having less than half of their offensive snaps as opportunities to actually get fancy points from him. So that's the only thing I really didn't like that much with that draft, but the running back group is fantastic and really well put together. Here, someone's got to pick Clyde Edwards-Helaire every draft. He's just not my pick. He's not my favorite player. Dalvin Cook, though, excellent choice there at the top of the board. And the rounds 3 and 4 picks with Allen and Woods were fantastic. And I think that, honestly, Myles Gaskin helps you upgrade that floor. And even if CEH isn't as much of a hit as we think he could be, I think Gaskin helps a little bit with that. And this being a full PPR league helps as well, because I think that'll give Edwards-Helaire some more floor value than we're giving him credit for. Rodgers coming back to the Packers now. That's a solid move at the quarterback spot. Fant, a high upside tight end in the mid rounds. Great job there. And then I love to see, what is this, 5 straight rounds of taking high upside wide receivers. This is what you got to do here. Load your bench with the guys with high upside. Ruggs and John Brown, one of those guys is more likely than not going to hit for that Raiders offense. Traquan Smith, a great sleeper option for the Saints there. Gabriel Davis, if Cole Beasley kind of gets bullied out of playing for the Bills this season because he's not following the COVID rules or whatever for the NFL, that could be an option there as well. So a quality draft put together by Gino Cat right there. Jokester here, the man who's always sniping my picks off the board, definitely watches all the videos and puts together some great lineups, always has some great things to say in the comment section down below. What's up to you, my man? I'm sure you're already down there commenting away on today's video. All right, so we've got Saquon Barkley, and this was auto-picked from him, so I actually remember that. He wasn't around, I don't think, until the 3rd round where he took Michael Thomas, so he's got 2 quality receivers. We'll see when MT actually shows up for him. ETN's a bit of a risky pick, but Tyler Lockett, that one really got me going there. I had to change my draft strategy completely at the end of the board. I think ETN is a really, really, really high upside play, but what worries me is being a gadget type piece. I don't know if he'll actually get the volume that we want from him. I don't think 20 touches is in play for ETN this season. I think that we should be happy with 12 to 15. And yes, a late 4th round pick might be warranted, but as your RB2, I mean, I did snatch Henderson up the pick before him, so he didn't really have that option there, but I might have even went Myles Gaskin before Travis Etienne, just because if he lines up and ends up doing jet sweeps and motion plays more often than getting just solid quality touches, that could become an issue down the road. I love the Lockett pick, the Herbert pick. Mostert has such a high ceiling, and you could use him as heavy trade bait if he hits off the year hard, because he could lose that job at any time to Sermon. So it might be best to move off your risk there. Taking a lot of flyers on tight ends in the late rounds of the draft. Not something I typically do, but he waited late. So at the end of the day, if you're going to do it then. Tight end is not a spot you should be investing multiple times if you pick them early off the board. But when you take your first tight end in the 11th round, you're just looking for one of them to hit, and maybe none of them hit. Maybe all of them hit. If that happened, you're in a good boat there, but it sets you up where you at least have options on the trade market. Let's get moving through some of these here. We've been talking for a while, and this video is probably getting a bit long. Great 2 picks here at the running back position. I'm not a huge Joe Mixon fan just because the floor is a bit risky. It seems like he always kind of lets us down, but the raw numbers and the volume tells us that he should be a great pick this year, so can't fault you for that. Derrick Henry is a great pick as well. Allen Robinson, Chris Godwin, Jamar Chase. That's a great trio of wide receivers to have put together. I love the TJ Hawkinson pick at the 6.8. That is a steal for him right there. I probably would have loved to have him had I not picked Darren Waller there if he fell to me at the next pick, but that didn't happen. Chark, David Johnson, Tim Tebow here in the last round. We've just got some nice high upside here to round out that group. That's a pretty strong draft as well. Maybe Matt Stafford has some question marks, but I think he should be pretty good in that Rams offense. Here we go. This team I absolutely love. So you've got 3 running backs in the first 4 rounds that I think have really great potential. Chubb's not the best PPR play, but a super safe floor. Calvin Ridley as your wide receiver 1 is great, and I think that Robbie Anderson is actually your second best receiver there. That's fantastic. Jalen Waddle's got crazy high upside. Michael Carter as a PPR running back will be phenomenal this season. Rashad Bateman, Marvin Jones, Russell Gage, Jacoby Myers, great sleeper wide receiver picks. This might be one of my favorite drafts so far from the Discord members. Ramondre Stevenson, another player I love here. This is like the all SFS draft. I said that earlier, but that is a fantastically well-rounded out lineup that I see there. Great job by everybody so far, and really, really appreciate all of you guys hopping in the draft today. And again, if you're new around here, still tuning into today's video, join that community Discord if you haven't yet already, and you can be in the next episode here. Jones and Eckler, 2 quality picks here, followed up by 5 straight receivers. I'm not a big fan of Shenault, but the rest of these 4 guys I think are really, really solid picks here. Shenault, the main reason for concern is I just worry about will he get enough volume. That's all it comes down to for me. I think he's a really talented, really dynamic player, but I worry when they talk about using ETN as a receiving threat when you've already got Chark and Jones in that offense. Sermon, fantastic pick there. Michael Gallup, a very, very talented player. I wish he would find a team, hopefully next season, away from Dallas where he can step out into more of his own role. Tannehill is a great quarterback 1 from Willie Wallace here as an option that I think he'll be a top 12 quarterback, no questions asked. Adam Troutman, a player I just talked about yesterday, great upside for an extremely late round tight end. And then the rest of the draft board just kind of rounding things out here. So that'll do it for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching. I appreciate each and every single one of you that takes the time to tune into today's video. And obviously, being a mock draft, this is a longer episode. So if you're still sticking with me here, shout out to you. And you are a huge reason for the success this channel has and why we're able to keep growing, because people like you put in the time here and help me help you guys become the best fantasy players you can be for the 2021 season. So thank you so much, as always. I appreciate you again. I don't know how many times I've said that today, but you all really mean the world to me. So thank you all. I'll see you guys next time for the top of next week with Mock Draft Monday. Again, join that Discord up so you can be a part of that video, and I'll see you then. Peace out.